My stepmother spent 11 months planning the perfect night to erase me from my own family. She picked a building that meant something to me. She just didn't know what. I'm Jill Cochran, 34, architect, Sarasota, Florida. Denise organized my father's 60th birthday at the Hargrove Pavilion on Lido Key. But it wasn't about his birthday. She was going to announce I'd been removed from the family trust. She didn't know what she was walking into. I did, and I walked through those doors anyway. What happened inside that ballroom? Denise is still trying to explain it. I don't think she ever will. Now, before I take you back to where this really started, if you're already thinking, wait, she walked into a trap on purpose? Yeah, I did. And if you think that's bold, wait until you hear what Denise said to me when I was 9 years old that made me swear I'd never need her approval again. Hit subscribe, tap that bell. Because what went down at the Hargrove Pavilion involved my father making a choice he can never undo. A toast that went sideways in front of 43 people, and a secret I'd been keeping for 3 years. Drop a comment and tell me, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? I always love knowing who's out there. Let me take you back to September 2nd, 1998. The afternoon Denise Prescott walked into our house on Osprey Avenue with 2 suitcases and a smile that never reached her eyes. My mom, Karen Cochran, died when I was 7. Ovarian cancer. One summer, she was teaching me how to measure door frames with her old tape measure. And by December, she was gone. She was a drafter at a small firm in Bradenton. She'd come home with blueprints rolled up under her arm, spread them on the kitchen table, and show me how buildings were born. I loved that. I loved her. Dad, Glenn Cochran, tried. For about 14 months, he tried to be both parents. But Glenn needs someone next to him telling him he's doing fine. He can't exist alone. I didn't understand that at 7. I understand it now. He met Denise at a fundraiser through his real estate office. She was 31, recently divorced, no kids, and she had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Glenn was hooked in weeks. She moved in by September, married him by the following June. And look, I tried. I really did. I wanted to like her. I wanted a mom again so badly that I would have accepted almost anyone. But Denise had this thing she did right from the start. She'd smile at me in front of my dad, warm, attentive, doting. And the second he left the room, the smile just went away. On, then off. Every time. She wasn't mean at first. She was just absent. I'd talk to her and she'd nod without looking up from her magazine. I'd show her a drawing and she'd say, "That's nice," in a tone that meant she hadn't looked at it. Small things. Things a 7-year-old notices but can't name. It got worse when Theo was born. Theo Cochran, my half-brother. Born March 17th, 2007, when I was 15. And I want to be very clear about something. I loved Theo from the first second I held him. That has never changed. He was this perfect, tiny person, and nothing between me and Denise was ever his fault. But the day Theo came home from the hospital, Denise stopped setting a place for me at dinner. Not every night, just often enough. I'd come downstairs and there'd be 3 settings. Glenn, Denise, the baby's high chair. I'd get my own plate from the cabinet and sit at the end. She never said anything about it. She never had to. I became furniture, decoration, the leftover from Glenn's first attempt at a family. Here's the thing about Denise. She never yelled, never threw anything, never did a single thing that you could point to and say, that right there is abuse. She was smarter than that. What she did was rewrite history, slowly, over years. When I was 16 and got accepted into the pre-architecture program at Ringling College for a summer intensive, Denise told my dad it was too expensive for something she'll probably quit in 2 weeks. My mom's life insurance money was sitting in a trust, plenty to cover it. But Denise controlled the household finances by then, and she told Glenn they couldn't afford luxuries for one child when we have 2 to think about. I heard her say that from the hallway. One child. Separating Theo from me, making the distinction clear. Glenn paid for the program anyway, but he apologized to Denise for it, in front of me. He said, "I know it's a lot, but she's got her heart set on it," apologizing for sending his own daughter to a summer program. That was the year I started keeping a notebook, just a regular composition book from Walgreens. I wrote down every time Denise made me feel like I didn't belong in my own house. Not because I planned to do anything with it. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. By the time I left for college at 18, that notebook had over 200 entries. And here's the cruel part, the part that still sits in my chest when I think about it too long. When I was 9, about a year after the wedding, I made Denise a Mother's Day card. I spent 2 hours on it, drew the house, drew all of us, wrote, "To my new mom" on the front with markers. I was so proud of it. She looked at it, smiled that switch smile, and then she put it on the counter and said, and I remember this word for word, "That's sweet, Jill. But you know I'm not actually your mom, right? Your mom is gone. I'm just the person who lives here." I was 9. I stood in that kitchen holding the markers and I didn't say anything. I just walked to my room and closed the door. I could hear her turn on the television. She didn't come check on me. She didn't think about it again. I thought about it every day for 25 years. I still hear those words. Every time I pick up a marker, every time I see a Mother's Day display at the store. When I got into the University of Florida's architecture program, Denise told the family I'd barely gotten in. I graduated summa cum laude. She told relatives I was struggling with the workload. When I got my first job at a firm in Tampa, she told my Aunt Meg it was a small office, nothing to brag about. That firm had 62 employees and 3 LEED Platinum certifications. She was building a version of me in everyone's head, the mediocre one, the one who never quite measured up. And she did it so gradually that by the time I was 25, half my family genuinely believed I was just scraping by. Meanwhile, Theo got everything. Braces, paid immediately. SAT prep course, $4,200, no discussion. New car at 16. A used Camry, but still. I didn't resent Theo for it. He was a kid. But the gap between what Denise invested in her son versus what she allowed Glenn to invest in me, it was a canyon. And Glenn stood at the edge of it and chose not to see it. I need to tell you about what happened the Thanksgiving before the Hargrove Pavilion, because that's when I found out about the trap. November 2023. I drove up from Sarasota to my dad's place in Osprey for Thanksgiving dinner. I almost didn't go. I'd been pulling back for years, showing up to fewer events, calling less, keeping visits short. Not because I was angry, because it was easier. Every visit felt like walking into a room where the oxygen had been slightly reduced. You don't notice it at first, but after a few hours, you're gasping. Dinner was the usual. Denise seated me at the far end of the table, next to my cousin Roland, who I've spoken to maybe 8 times in my entire life. Theo sat next to Glenn. Denise sat on Glenn's other side. After dinner, I was in the kitchen washing dishes, because of course I was, when Theo came in. He was 19 by then. Quiet kid. Thoughtful. He had this habit of leaning against door frames instead of walking into rooms. He leaned against the kitchen door frame and said, "Jill, can I tell you something?" I kept washing. "Sure. Mom's planning something. For Dad's birthday in October." Yeah, she mentioned the party. It's not just a party. He paused. I turned off the water. She's been on the phone with Uncle Reed and Aunt Constance. She's getting everyone together to vote you out of the Cochrane Trust. I just stood there, suds dripping off my hands. She told Dad that you've been estranged and that it's not fair to keep your name on a trust you don't participate in. She's got paperwork. She's been working on this since July. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because of course she was. Of course Denise would spend 5 months orchestrating my financial erasure while smiling at me over turkey. Theo, why are you telling me this? He looked at the floor. Because it's not right. And because I heard what she said to Uncle Reed last week. She said, he stopped. She said you'd never notice because you're too busy playing architect to care about family. Playing architect. I dried my hands, slowly, and something just clicked into place. Not anger, something colder, clearer. See, here's what Denise didn't know. What nobody in that family knew, because I'd stopped sharing my professional life with them years ago. I wasn't playing architect. I was a partner at Cochrane Drake Design. We had 23 employees, a project pipeline worth $14 million, and our biggest project, a waterfront pavilion on Lido Key, had just been shortlisted for the AIA Florida Award of Excellence. And I'd stopped telling them because every time I shared something good, Denise found a way to shrink it. So I just stopped, built my career in silence, let them believe whatever version of me Denise had constructed. And now Denise wanted to erase me at the Hargrove Pavilion. My building. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I decided to go. Not to fight the trust thing. I honestly didn't even care about the money. I decided to walk in. To let Denise do her thing while I kept my own plans quiet. Have you ever spent years being quietly made smaller by someone, and then one day you realize the smallness they saw was never real? It was just the version of you they needed to believe in. If you know that feeling, that moment where the fog clears and you see yourself without their filter, tell me in the comments. Because that Thanksgiving night, driving back to Sarasota on I-75 at 11 p.m., I felt it. The fog lifting. And what I found underneath scared me. Because it wasn't sadness. It was fury. But I wasn't ready for the Hargrove Pavilion yet. I had 10 months, and I was going to use every single one of them. So here's what the next 10 months looked like. On the surface, nothing changed. I called Glenn on Sundays. I sent Denise a birthday card in March. I showed up to Easter brunch and sat at the far end of the table and ate my potato salad and said nothing interesting. Denise was pleasant. The switch smile was on. Everything was fine. Underneath, I was building. My firm, Cochrane Drake Design. I started it with my business partner, Lena Drake, in 2019. Lena's the one who kept me sane through most of this. She's not warm and fuzzy about it. She's more the type to hand you a spreadsheet and say, here's why your family is wrong, mathematically. And on the bad days, when I didn't talk about what was going on at home, she'd leave a coffee on my desk. No note, just the coffee. Lena doesn't do speeches. She just does things. The Hargrove Pavilion was our biggest project, a $6.8 million waterfront event space on Lido Key, designed for the Sarasota Community Foundation. 2 stories, floor-to-ceiling glass on the west side facing the Gulf, an open-air rooftop terrace with native landscaping. I designed every detail, from the coral stone facade to the reclaimed cypress ceiling beams. It was the project I'd been waiting my entire career for. And in January 2024, we got the call. The AIA Florida chapter had selected the Hargrove Pavilion as a finalist for the Award of Excellence in Commercial Design. The ceremony was scheduled for October 19th. October 19th. Denise had booked Glenn's 60th birthday party for October 19th. Same date. I knew because she'd sent out invitations in December. Cream cardstock, gold embossing. I'd gotten mine in the mail and tacked it to my fridge as a reminder. Same night. In one room, my family would be voting to erase me. In another room, I'd potentially be receiving the most prestigious award of my career. I didn't know yet where either event would be held. I just knew the dates collided. And I thought, fine, I'll go to the ceremony, skip the birthday, and nobody will notice or care. That was the plan. Skip Denise's performance, attend my own night, keep the two worlds separate. Now let me tell you about what Denise was doing during those same months. She was campaigning. That's the only word for it. She called Uncle Reed and his wife Constance in Tallahassee. She called my dad's cousin Phyllis in Jacksonville. She called Aunt Meg in Clearwater, who, to her credit, was the only one who pushed back. She told Denise, "I'm not voting on anything without talking to Jill first." Denise reportedly said, "Meg, Jill doesn't even come to Christmas anymore. She's made her choice." Denise also found an estate attorney in Venice. She got him to draft an amendment to the Cochran Family Trust that would redistribute my share, roughly $187,000, equally among the remaining beneficiaries. Glenn, Theo, Uncle Reed's kids. She showed the paperwork to Glenn. He signed it. My father signed paperwork to remove me from my own grandparents' trust. The trust my grandmother Lucille set up specifically so her grandchildren, all of them, would have a safety net. And Glenn signed it because Denise told him it was the fair thing to do. I didn't know about the signing until later. Theo told me in August, over a burger at a place on St. Armand's Circle. He looked miserable. "I told her I didn't want your share," he said. "She said it wasn't about me. She said it was about equity." Equity. That word coming out of Denise's mouth. I almost choked on my fries. And here's something I haven't told you yet. During one of those Sunday calls, sometime in April, I think, Denise picked up Glenn's phone. She does that. And before passing me over, she said something strange. Her voice was different. Tired. She said, "Jill, your father's been stressed. Please don't add to it." And then there was this pause, just a beat too long. And she said, very quietly, "I know what it's like when a family doesn't want you. I do." Then she caught herself. Her voice snapped back to its usual register, and she said, "Anyway, here's your father." I never forgot that. Not because it made me feel sorry for her, but because it was the only time in 26 years I heard Denise admit she might understand exactly what she was doing to me. October was coming. By September, Denise's plans were fully in motion. She'd confirmed 38 RSVPs. She'd ordered a cake from a bakery in Venice. 3 tiers, Glenn's favorite, chocolate ganache. She'd written a speech. Theo told me about the speech. He'd found a draft on her laptop. "It's not about Dad," he said over the phone. His voice was tight. "I mean, it starts with Dad. Happy birthday, love of my life, all that. But then it pivots. She talks about the next chapter of the Cochran family and honoring Grandma Lucille's vision by ensuring the trust reflects our active family." That's a direct quote, Jill. Active family. Active family, meaning not me. Because I'd pulled away. Because I'd stopped showing up to events where I was treated invisible. And now my absence was being used as evidence that I didn't care. It was brilliant, in a sick kind of way. Denise had spent 26 years making me feel unwelcome, and now she was using my withdrawal as proof that I'd abandoned them. She'd created the wound and then blamed me for bleeding. Meanwhile, at my office on Palm Avenue, things were accelerating. The AIA had confirmed we'd won. Not just a finalist, The actual award of excellence. I got the call on September 3rd, sitting in my office with Lena. When I hung up, she just looked at me and said, "Well, we got it." Lena doesn't cry. She's from Minnesota. She clinked her coffee mug against mine and said, "About damn time." That was her version of sobbing with joy. The ceremony would include a 10-minute presentation on the Hargrove Pavilion project, followed by the award presentation. They wanted me to give a brief acceptance speech. And the venue? The AIA ceremony was being held at the Hargrove Pavilion itself. My building. And when the venue coordinator called me to confirm logistics, she mentioned something that stopped me cold. "Oh, and I see there's a private event in the East Wing that same evening. A birthday party for a Glenn Cochran. Is that a coincidence?" I about dropped my phone. "It's my father," I said. She laughed. Small world. Same building, same night. The award ceremony in the main ballroom. Denise's party in the East Wing reception hall, the smaller space she'd rented because, as she told Glenn, "We don't need the big room, it's intimate." I didn't tell anyone at first. Not Lena, not Theo, nobody. I sat with that information for weeks. Turned it over while running on Siesta Key Beach at 6 a.m., while reviewing elevations at my drafting table, while lying in bed staring at the ceiling fan. And I need to tell you about something Denise said in September. It was a Sunday call. I'd called Glenn, but Denise picked up. Before she passed me to him, she's this: "Jill, I really hope you're coming to your father's party. It would mean so much to him. You know, he worries about you. We both do. I want you to know that no matter what choices you've made in your career or in your personal life, you'll always have a place at our table. We don't judge. No matter what choices you've made in your career." She said it the way you'd talk about someone who'd dropped out. We don't judge. The most judgmental sentence in the English language. I'll be there, Denise. And he chit. And right here, I need to ask you something. If someone set a trap designed specifically to humiliate you, and you found out you could walk into it and flip it, would you? Even if it meant blowing up every remaining relationship you had with that family. Would you take that risk? Drop your answer in the comments. Because I need you to understand, I wasn't sure. Some nights I thought about just skipping the whole thing, letting Denise have her vote, keeping my award ceremony separate. The easy path. But then I'd remember that Mother's Day card. I'm just the person who lives here. And the easy path stopped looking so easy. October 14th, 5 days before the party. I was at my office reviewing the final seating arrangements for the AIA ceremony when the venue coordinator called again. "Ms. Cochran, I wanted to confirm, you're aware there's a private event in the East Wing from 6 to 10 p.m.? The Cochran birthday party?" "Yes." "And you'd like to keep the two events separate? No shared access to the main ballroom?" I knew that building better than anyone alive. I'd designed the connecting doors between the East Wing and the main ballroom. They weren't locked barriers. They were fire code exits, standard egress points. Their default position was unlocked. Actually, don't lock the connecting doors. Between the East Wing and the main ballroom. Leave them as they are. Silence on the phone. As they are? As they are. When I hung up, Lena was standing in my doorway. She'd heard the whole thing. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "You sure?" "No." "Okay." She went back to her desk. That's the kind of friend Lena is. She doesn't talk you into things or out of things. She just makes sure you know she's there. October 19th. I'll remember every detail of that day until I die. Sarasota was gorgeous. 78 degrees, light wind off the Gulf. One of those October evenings where the sky turns this impossible shade of pink. I got to the Hargrove Pavilion at 4:30 p.m., 2 hours before either event started. I wanted to walk the building. My building. I wore a navy dress I'd bought specifically for the ceremony. Nothing flashy. Professional. The kind of dress my mom would have approved of. Clean lines, good fabric, nothing extra. I walked the East Wing first. Denise's party. Round tables with white linens. A podium with a microphone. She'd actually rented a podium. A projector screen behind it. I could see the edges of a slideshow on the laptop. The Cochran family, past, present, and future, was the title slide. Past, present, future. And I was supposed to be past. Then I walked through the connecting doors into the main ballroom. The AIA setup was clean. Minimal. A stage with a lectern, a screen showing finalist projects, chairs arranged theater style. My building, displayed on a 20-foot screen in a room inside itself. My firm's name was everywhere. Cochran Drake Design. On the banners, on the programs, on the award itself, sitting on a table backstage in its velvet case. I stood in that empty ballroom for maybe 10 minutes, and I thought about my mom, Karen Cochran, the drafting table, the blueprints spread on the kitchen table, the tape measure. I didn't cry. I just breathed. People started arriving at 6. The AIA crowd came through the main entrance on the west side. Architects, developers, city officials, press. Denise's party guests came through the east entrance, which meant they walked past the dedication plaque. Hargrove Pavilion, completed 2023, designed by Cochran Drake Design. Lead architect, Jill A. Cochran. Not a single person mentioned it to me later, which means either nobody read it, or everyone read it and Denise made sure nobody brought it up. By 6:30, I could hear Denise's party through the connecting doors. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. She was in there, in a room I designed, setting up the moment she'd been planning for 11 months. The AIA ceremony started at 7. I sat in the third row with Lena on my right and Val on my left. Theo had texted me that afternoon. I'm in the East Wing. I'll be listening. The awards moved through categories: residential, institutional, sustainable design. Each winner got their 10 minutes. At 8:15, they called commercial design. The 2024 AIA Florida Award of Excellence in Commercial Design goes to Cochran Drake Design for the Hargrove Pavilion on Lido Key. Lead architect, Jill Cochran. I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I expected nerves, adrenaline, something. But my hands were completely still, and that scared me more than trembling would have. I walked to the stage. They showed the project on the screen. Aerial shots, interior details, the rooftop terrace at sunset. And then I was at the lectern, and I gave my speech. I talked about the design process, about the coral stone we sourced from a quarry in Ocala, about my mom, briefly, the woman who taught me that buildings are born on kitchen tables. I kept it to 4 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't mention Denise or the party happening one wall away. But here's what I didn't plan for. The applause. It was loud. The main ballroom had better acoustics than the East Wing. Sound carries in that building. I know because I designed the acoustic paneling. In the East Wing, in the middle of Denise's speech about the future of the Cochran family, 200 people started clapping on the other side of the wall. Theo told me later what happened. Denise paused, looked at the wall. Someone, my cousin Roland of all people, said, "What's going on in there?" Denise tried to keep going, but then the MC's voice bled through the connecting doors. "Cochran Drake Design, Jill Cochran." My name. Through the wall. In a building with my name on the outside. Denise stopped talking. What happened next was not part of my plan. I need to be honest about that. I'd imagined a quiet, contained victory. I'd receive my award, Denise would do her thing, and eventually the family would find out through the grapevine. A slow realization that the person they were erasing had just been honored in the same building. That's not what happened. Theo opened the connecting doors. I was still on stage, holding the award, this heavy glass piece with a pavilion etched into it, when I saw the doors on the left side of the ballroom swing open. And there was Theo, standing in the doorway. Behind him, I could see white tablecloths, the birthday cake, Denise's slideshow frozen on the screen. And behind Theo, one by one, people started walking through. Aunt Meg first. She came through the doors and looked up at the stage, and her face just crumpled. Not in a bad way. In the way faces crumple when something suddenly makes sense that never made sense before. Then Uncle Reed, my cousin Phyllis, Roland, my dad's old business partner. One by one, they filtered into the main ballroom. Some were holding wine glasses. One woman, I think she was Constance, was still holding a napkin. They saw the banners. Cochrane Drake Design. They saw my name on the screen. They saw me standing on a stage holding an architecture award in a building that had my name carved into the stone outside. The MC, a gracious man from the AIA chapter, looked mildly confused, but kept things professional. It appears we have additional guests. Welcome, everyone. I just stood there, holding my award, looking at my family. If you're still with me right now and your jaw is somewhere near the floor, hit that subscribe button, because what Denise did next is something I'll never forget. And then I saw her. Denise came through the doors last. She was wearing this emerald green dress. She always dressed well, I'll give her that. And her face was recalculating. She was looking at the room, the banners, the screen, the award in my hand, and I could see her doing the math, trying to figure out how this was possible. She let out this small laugh. Well, isn't that something? And reached for Glenn's arm. But Glenn didn't move toward her. Aunt Meg was already at the stage. The family was reading the banners. The recovery collapsed before it started, because in Denise's version of reality, the one she'd maintained for 26 years, I was the failed stepdaughter, the one who played architect. And now she was standing in a building I designed, watching me receive an award in front of 200 professionals plus her own family. She looked at the dedication plaque. I watched her eyes move to it, mounted on the interior wall near the connecting doors. Jill A. Cochrane. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Glenn was behind her, 60 years old, gray at the temples, wearing the sport coat Denise probably picked out for him. He looked at the plaque. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at Denise. And for the first time in 26 years, I saw my father's face without Denise's filter on it. He looked, God, this is hard to say. He looked ashamed. Aunt Meg walked up to the stage. She didn't wait for permission. She climbed the 3 steps and hugged me. Right there, in front of everyone. She whispered in my ear, "Your mother would be so proud she couldn't breathe." I held on to her. I held on to that award. And I did not look at Denise. Not yet. The rest of that night was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos. The AIA people were incredibly gracious about the intrusion. The MC made a joke about the most enthusiastic award reception we've had in 20 years, and everyone laughed. The ceremony continued. My family stood along the back wall, watching the remaining awards. Shell-shocked, I think. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the foyer. Open bar, appetizer tables, networking. My two worlds were suddenly occupying the same physical space, and I couldn't control any of it. Lena stayed close. She didn't say much, but she positioned herself between me and the east wing. Val kept refilling my water glass. Theo stood near the door, arms crossed, watching his mother. The first family member to approach me was Uncle Reed. He walked up with his hands in his pockets and said, "Jill, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For signing that amendment. For not calling you myself." "You signed it?" "We all signed it. Denise said you—" He stopped, swallowed. "Denise said you'd agreed to it. She said you told Glenn you didn't want to be involved with the family anymore, and the trust paperwork was a formality." Of course she did. Of course Denise told them I'd agreed. That's the play. Make the victim look willing. "Reed," I said, "I didn't agree to anything. I didn't even know about it until my brother told me." His face changed. I could see him putting it together. Years of it. Every absence Denise had explained. Every lie that had seemed reasonable at the time. Then Phyllis found me, tears already running down her face. She grabbed both my hands and said, "She told us you cut off contact. She said Glenn cried about it at Christmas." Her voice cracked. "I believed her, Jill. For 4 years I believed her. And I never once called you to ask." "I called Glenn every Sunday," I said. "Every single Sunday for 4 years." Phyllis closed her eyes. "Oh, God." But before I get to what happened with Denise directly, I need to talk about Glenn. I want to say something here, and I need you to really hear this, because the comment section is going to be full of people saying, "Your dad is just as bad," and "He should have stood up for you." And yeah, you're right, he should have. But there's a difference between someone who wants to hurt you and someone who's too weak to stop someone else from hurting you. Both cause damage, but the damage feels different. He found me on the rooftop terrace. I'd gone up there to breathe. The Gulf was black under the stars, and you could hear the waves from the beach below. I'd designed that terrace with exactly this moment in mind. A place where someone could stand above everything and just be quiet. "Jill." I turned around. He was standing at the top of the stairs. His eyes were red. "You designed this building." "Yeah." "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said the truest thing I've ever said in my life. "Because you would have told Denise, and she would have found a way to make it smaller." He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just stood there, and a tear rolled down his cheek, and he said, "I'm sorry." 2 words. 26 years late. I stood on that terrace, and I looked at the Gulf, and I thought, buildings outlast the people who try to ignore them. Names carved in stone don't need anyone's permission to stay. I'm not going to tell you it fixed everything. It didn't. 2 words don't rebuild what decades of silence destroyed. But they were the first honest words my father had said to me since my mother died. And that counted for something. Glenn said sorry. 2 words. And I wanted to believe them. But I knew Denise wasn't done. A woman who spends 11 months building a trap doesn't just fold her hands when it collapses. She rebuilds. She always rebuilds. Was I right to hold back? To accept those 2 words without demanding more? Tell me, before you hear what happened Monday morning. Because Denise didn't wait until Monday. She started Sunday night. The week after the Hargrove Pavilion was the hardest week of my life. And I know that sounds wrong, because I just told you about this triumphant night where everything came together. But here's what they don't tell you about vindication. The morning after, you still wake up in the same bed, the same life, and the people who hurt you are still out there, figuring out their next move. Denise went nuclear. By Monday morning, she'd called every relative who'd been at the party. Her new story was that I'd deliberately ambushed my father's birthday, that I'd known about both events being in the same building, and had orchestrated the whole thing to humiliate her and Glenn on his special night. Which, okay, parts of that are true. I knew. I could have said something. I chose not to. And I understand how that looks. I'm not going to pretend I'm some innocent bystander. I made choices, and some of those choices were about revenge. I can own that. But here's what Denise left out of her version: the trust amendment, the lies she'd told every family member about my relationship with Glenn, the years of quiet erasure. In her telling, the night at the Hargrove was Act 1, me attacking her. In reality, it was Act 3, me surviving her. She also went after my professional reputation. She called the Sarasota Community Foundation, the organization that funded the Hargrove Pavilion. She told their office that the architect who designed the building had used the venue to stage a personal family attack, and that the foundation should reconsider their association. Lena intercepted that one. The foundation's director called our office to ask about it. Sounded embarrassed. I'm sure it's nothing, but we received a complaint and I'm required to follow up. Lena handled it with her usual Minnesota calm, explained the situation, sent the AIA award documentation. The director said, "The complainant didn't mention the award. She described your principal as an unstable family member. I think I understand the situation now. That call could have damaged my firm. 23 employees depending on us, because Denise was embarrassed at a party. But Theo called me Wednesday night. He was upset. Pacing, I could hear him walking back and forth. Jill, Mom told Dad that you planned the whole thing to ruin his birthday on purpose. And Dad? He's listening to her. She's crying every night. She told him you're trying to destroy their marriage." My stomach dropped. "She's playing victim," I said. "I know, but it's working. Dad's angry. At you." Theo was quiet for a second. Then he said, louder than I'd ever heard him, "She's the one who lied to everyone. She's the one who forged your name, and she's calling you unstable? How does Dad not see this?" I didn't have an answer. And there it was, the whiplash. 3 days earlier, Glenn had said, "I'm sorry," on a terrace under the stars. Now he was angry at me because Denise was crying. That's the Glenn Cochran cycle. He sees the truth, feels the guilt, and then Denise cries and he reroutes all of it back onto me. Every time. I sat on my kitchen floor that night, 11 p.m., ate cereal out of the box, and I asked myself, was it worth it? Was walking into that building worth blowing up the last thread of connection I had with my father? I didn't have an answer that night. I just ate my cereal and went to bed. And then Theo told me what Denise said at Thanksgiving, this year's Thanksgiving. She'd been talking to Constance in the kitchen, didn't know Theo was in the hallway, and she said in that calm, measured voice, Karen would be embarrassed by the spectacle Jill made. Her own mother would be ashamed. My dead mother. She used my dead mother's name to make me small. 26 years of cruelty, and she'd finally found the one thing I couldn't put in a notebook. She said it quietly, casually, the way you'd comment on the weather. Theo told me, and I didn't speak for a long time. He said, "Jill?" I said, "I'm here." But I wasn't really. I was 9 years old, standing in a kitchen holding markers. I was at my drafting table on a Tuesday morning in November when Meg called. I had my mom's tape measure stretched across a set of elevations. The coffee was still warm. Normal morning. "Jill," Meg said, "I need to tell you what I found." She'd been digging, 3 weeks of it, She'd gone back through family emails, group texts, holiday photos. She'd found threads where Denise had told different stories to different people about why I wasn't at events. To Reed, it was, Jill said she didn't want to come. To Phyllis, it was, Jill's going through something, let's give her space. To Meg herself, it was, Glenn's heartbroken, but Jill's made her choice. All lies. Every version crafted to make the listener feel like reaching out to me would be intrusive or unwelcome. Meg put together a timeline, sent it to Reed, Phyllis, and two of Glenn's cousins I barely knew. She wrote at the top, I think we owe Jill more than an apology. I think we owe her a conversation. Reed called me the next day. He was furious. At himself. I voted to remove you from a trust your grandmother set up for you because your stepmother told me you'd agreed. I never picked up the phone. I'm 63 years old and I didn't pick up the phone. I felt bad for him. Reed's not a bad person. He's just the kind of person who takes the path of least resistance. And Denise had made that path run straight through me. By mid-November, the family had effectively split. Meg, Reed, Phyllis, and a few others were firmly in my corner. Glenn and Constance were still with Denise. Theo was caught in the middle, living in that house, eating dinner with Denise every night, texting me updates from the bathroom. The trust amendment was challenged. Aunt Meg hired her own estate attorney in Clearwater. His name was Vincent Parrish. He reviewed the documents and found that Denise's amendment required signatures from all beneficiaries, including me. My signature wasn't on it. She'd forged it. I'm going to say that again because it matters. She forged my signature on a legal document, removing me from my own grandparents' trust. When Meg told me, I was in my car in the parking garage at my office. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, engine off, just sitting. After 26 years of quiet cruelty, of careful manipulation, of surgical social dismantling, she crossed a legal line. She put pen to paper and wrote my name on a document I'd never seen. That's what greed does. It makes careful people sloppy. Vincent filed a challenge. The trust amendment was frozen pending review. Denise's attorney in Venice stopped returning her calls after Vincent's letter arrived. And Glenn called me on a Tuesday, November 19th. He didn't say hello. He just said, "Did your stepmother forge your signature?" "Yes." Long silence. I could hear Denise in the background, saying something I couldn't make out. "I didn't know," Glenn said. "I believe you. She told me you signed it over the phone." "I know." Another silence. Then, "Jill, I think I need some time." He hung up. That phone call broke something open. Not between me and Glenn, between Glenn and Denise. Theo texted me that night. "They're in the bedroom. Door closed. I can hear Mom crying. Dad's voice is different. He's not comforting her. He's asking questions." Glenn was finally asking questions. 26 years in, and all it took was a forged signature to make him wonder what else she'd been lying about. February 2025. 4 months after the Hargrove Pavilion. My phone buzzed on a Tuesday morning. Glenn. "Jill, Denise moved out." I put down my pencil. "She's staying with her sister in Tampa. I don't know what we're doing yet, but she's not here." I didn't say anything for a long time. "Are you okay?" I finally asked. Because despite everything, despite the 26 years, the trust, the forged signature, the erasure, he was still my dad, and he sounded exhausted. His voice was thin, hollowed out. "No," he said, "not really. But I think that's the right answer for once." The trust was restored in March. Vincent Parrish handled it. My name went back where it had always belonged. Next to Theo's, next to Reed's kids, next to the name of every Cochrane grandchild Lucille had loved. $187,000 wasn't life-changing money, but having my name on that document felt like having my name on the family again. Denise signed the divorce papers in April. Glenn didn't contest. From what Theo told me, it was quiet. No screaming, no drama. Denise took what she was entitled to and left. Moved to Tampa permanently. Changed her last name back to Prescott. She never called me. Never apologized. Never acknowledged the 26 years. She just left. Her lease on our family was up. I went to Osprey to help Glenn unpack some boxes from the attic. Things Denise had stored away. And in one of those boxes, labeled Glenn Misk in Denise's handwriting, I found a stack of things she'd packed up years ago. My mother's drafting tools, her T-square, her architect's scale, the tape measure she used to let me hold when I was 6, and at the bottom of the box, folded and wrinkled but still intact, a Mother's Day card, marker drawings, a house, a family, to my new mom. 25 years in a box in the attic. I didn't say anything. I took the card and the drafting tools and put them in my car. Glenn saw me carrying the box out and just nodded. Theo graduated from UCF that spring. Business degree. He came down to Sarasota for a weekend to celebrate, and we went to dinner at a place on Siesta Key where you can sit outside and watch the pelicans. He was different. Lighter. The tension he'd carried since he was old enough to notice it had finally drained out of his shoulders. "I'm thinking about applying to work at your firm," he said. "On the business side. I don't know anything about architecture, but I can do project management." I looked at him. My half-brother. The kid who was supposed to be my replacement. Who was never my replacement because he was always just my brother. "Send me your resume," I said. "And don't list Denise as a reference." He laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd heard from him in a long time. That dinner on Siesta Key. Pelicans diving, salt air. My brother sitting across from me talking about his future. That's the moment I think about when people ask me if it was worth it. Not the award ceremony. Not Denise's face. This. Just this. It's a Tuesday, March. I'm at my office on Palm Avenue before anyone else gets in. The light in Sarasota at 7 a.m. is this soft gold that comes through the east-facing windows and hits the drafting table just right. I've got coffee from the place on Main Street. My mom's tape measure is on my desk. I keep it there now. Not as a shrine, just as a tool. I use it. Lena will be here in 20 minutes. She'll say something dry. Theo starts next week. He's nervous, keeps texting me questions about the dress code. Val is coming by later with something she baked. My phone will ring. Clients, contractors, the world turning. Glenn comes down to Sarasota once a month now. We have dinner. It's not easy. It's not warm yet. It's two people learning how to be honest with each other for the first time in their adult lives. Last time, he brought me a box of my mom's old blueprints from the house. Some of them were water-stained. Some were perfect. I spread them on my kitchen table and studied them the way I used to when I was 6. Denise is in Tampa. I hear she's working at a real estate office. I don't think about her much. Not out of hatred. Out of distance. She's a person who lived in my life for 26 years and left very little behind that was good. The few things she left, the toughness, the self-reliance, the ability to build in silence, those were things I made from what she gave me. She meant them as damage. I turned them into tools. The Hargrove Pavilion won a second award, a national one this time. They wanted to do a feature in Architectural Digest. Lena handled the press. I went to the building on a Sunday afternoon and walked through it alone. stood on the rooftop terrace, looked at the Gulf. Same spot where Glenn said, "I'm sorry." The building is still there. My name is still on it. And Denise walked past that plaque 6 times and never read it. I think that tells you everything you need to know. Now look, I want to talk to you directly for a second. You've been with me for a long time now. You've heard about Denise and Glenn and Theo and the Hargrove and the trust and the forged signature and the Mother's Day card. You've been here for all of it. And I need to say thank you. Not in a generic way. I mean it specifically. Sharing this story out loud, hearing myself say these things, it does something. It makes it real in a way that keeping it inside never did. For years, I kept it all in that composition notebook. Private, silent. And silence protects the people who hurt you. So thank you for being the opposite of silence. If this story mattered to you, if any part of it made you feel seen or angry or relieved or even just curious, I'd love it if you'd hit like. Subscribe if you haven't already. These stories reach people who need them, and your click is what makes that happen. And I have a question for you. Not a big one, just this. Is there something you built, a career, a relationship, a life, that someone tried to make smaller? And did you let them? Or did you keep building? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And I promise you, your story matters as much as mine. If you want more stories like this one, there's always another one waiting. Click the next video. I think you'll find something that stays with you. My name is Jill Cochran, 34, architect, daughter, and nobody's past tense. The buildings I make, they stand.